you ready to become awesomer? Hello everyone, my name is Umar Hamid and welcome to the No Limit Selling Podcast, where we explore mindset, how leaders grow their people, their teams, their organizations, and their revenue. Looking for more? Join us on the Mindset Boosters group. You'll find the link in the show notes. And now, let's get on with the show. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. Today I have the privilege of having Jeff Borovitz here with me today. Jeff is a sales master. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Hi Umar, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Brilliant. Jeff, we can talk about all the fancy stuff in the world around sales and process, but there's common mistakes that keep on happening. What's one of the common mistakes that salespeople do that you see a lot of?
I think there's many different things that salespeople do, but one of the biggest opportunities for improvement for salespeople is they just don't do enough of the pre-call planning work. They just show up and want to wing it on the sales call. Matter of fact, I just read a study from a company called the Sales Board that 96% of salespeople have no written objective prior to going on a sales call.
But Jeff, you need to understand that us salespeople, we're like artists, and it's we connect. And of course, if you don't know what you're going for, it's hard to get. So how does a company, because a lot of VPs are probably pulling their hair out, trying to get them to actually do the pre-call planning, how do you indoctrinate that behavior?
Well, I think it's got to become part of the culture. And I can't remember who said this, but somebody said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will do. And I think too many salespeople take that approach because they don't have a process of pre-call planning behind them. And everybody says, oh, just do some research and go in and read the walls and you'll connect with them, because we're like salespeople are like actors and artists, and they'll just make it work. And it's amazing. I was recently on a sales call, a real face-to-face sales call, which in the time of COVID is much rarer than it used to be. Mm-hmm. I was doing a ride along with one of my clients' salespeople, and he actually did his pre-call plan, but he walked in to the client's office, and the client, you know what a fathead sticker is?
Yes.
Yeah. So this client had a fathead sticker of his kid, who's probably 9 or 10 years old, playing soccer on his wall. Well, the sales rep I was with was really excited because he's a youth soccer coach.
Yes.
So he thought he had a great way to connect. And they spent 52 minutes
talking soccer.
Youth soccer. And when we finally ran, and about, most of the time I was looking for a way of, killing myself while I was on the call with him. And when we finally got around to having the discussion of why we were actually there, the client said, oh, you know what? I've got a hard stop. And we never got to the purpose of the call. When we walked out of the call, we got in the car, the sales rep looked at me and goes, that was a great call. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, did you see how I connected with him? And I said, do you have your pre-call planning sheet? He goes, yeah. I said, can you pull it out? Sure. I said, what did it say the objective for today's call was? He said, oh, the objective of today's call was to get him to agree to a paid trial of our software. I said, did you accomplish that? He said, no, but I built great rapport with him.
Yes.
And I said to him, was that the goal of today's call? And he said, well, no, but I still built great rapport. Well, Omar, one of the rules in Sandler is that time kills deals. The person set an appointment for 2 weeks out. Well, that appointment got canceled. And by the time they finally were able to reconnect on the phone, which was 4 weeks later, wouldn't you know it, they had agreed to do a paid trial with one of his competitors.
That hurts so badly when it's happened to me before, where I've not stayed in touch with a client and then they're like, oh, I'm glad you called, but we hired another company. And it was like, not bad on them, bad on me for not being a good salesperson.
Right. And in this case, bad on him for not following a pre-call plan. And if you had, a good pre-call plan has really just 4 parts to it.
So
And I'll
spell it
say
out. What are the 4 parts?
the 4 parts are the purpose of the call,
Mm-hmm.
what the agenda is, what items do you not want to have on the agenda, and what items do they want to have on the agenda. The 4th part is the logistics. What are the logistics of the call? How long is it going to, when's it going to start? Where is it going to be? Is it on Zoom? Is it on Teams? Is it in person? Whatever it's going to be. Who is expected to attend? And also, most importantly, how long is it going to last? Because people want to know that there's going to be an end time, that you're not moving in. And then the fourth part is the outcome. What is the outcome of the call going to be?
Yes.
And it can be mutually agreed upon. So those are the 4 parts, and I call it a PALO, PALO. And so when I'm working with sales organizations and salespeople, it's really about what was your PALO for the call. And so those are the 4 parts of a good pre-call plan. And we have 6 steps to doing a pre-call plan, which I'm happy to share if you want to hear.
Sure. Before we go there, it's so that's a classic example of the great philosopher Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And he got gobsmacked by, hey, we got this thing in common. And I think that's brilliant. He should have done that for about 5 minutes and then transition over to what he was there to do, not 55 minutes. And then I was like, oh, offside, you got to leave.
Yeah, but that's the key. In almost every sales call, you're going to get smacked in the mouth at some point. And that's why the PALO is great to help you stay on track. But the 6 steps of pre-call planning, which
So let's go through that. What are the 6 steps?
So again, the purpose of the call. Having a written objective for what the purpose of the call is, and really planning out that PALO.
So pause there just for a minute. So would it be a fair statement to say, if you were my customer and I said, Jeff, thanks so much for meeting with me today. The purpose of our visit today is, and just make it very, very explicit so both parties know?
Yeah. One of the things people think they got to obfuscate and hide the purpose of the call, and you really don't. It's a mistake, because when you don't give them what the purpose of the call is, and it's not mutually agreed to and mutually understood, and you don't share what the outcome is, the expected outcome is, which is not always a yes signed contract, right? There's a lot of intermediary steps that can happen that are still good outcomes. But when we don't tell people what the purpose is and what the outcome or the decision we want them to make at the end of the call is, when we get to the end of the call, we are just smacking them upside the head out of left field to them, and they are surprised. And Umar, if your listeners, the one thing I would tell you is this: remember this about sales: surprise is the enemy of yes.
I'm going to write that down.
A surprised mind almost always says no as a first reaction.
So one of the reasons it does that is right now, as you're sitting in your office, I'm sure it's a safe place, but the reptile part of your brain is scanning the surroundings just in case there's a zombie attack. And when you're in a sales presentation and a surprise comes up, all of a sudden that part of your brain comes up and says, do I fight like hell or run like hell? And none of those things says yes.
That's right. And so we want to have a good PALO is the first step, right?
Yes. So we know the purpose. Then what's step 2?
And so before I move to step 2, they should write it down, because I find when you write it down, I don't care if you type it out, write it out, whatever, it gives you a chance to look at it and go, you know what, that's not exactly what I mean to say, and revise it. So the second step is they should prepare in advance the questions they want to ask and need answers to. You will never be looked at as anything other than a consummate professional by your client if you come in with your questions prepared and you're not trying to go, let me think, what should I ask? No. Come in with a written question.
Worse, you get back in the car and you go, oh my God,
yes,
I forgot to ask that one question. I'll call him back. You'll never get him on the phone.
That's exactly right. And that's what we want to avoid, is that soul scumping moment when we get in the car and we go, I forgot. So that's the second step. The third
Yes,
step is I want them to be a pessimist. Have you ever heard of Murphy's Law?
I have.
Yeah.
We
So
had it today when we had technology difficulties hooking up on this podcast. Yes, I'm familiar with it.
Murphy's Law says that anything can go wrong will go wrong.
Hmm.
Well, I believe in O'Malley's corollary, which says that Murphy was an optimist. So I want them to be a pessimist. I want them to think of what could go wrong. What are the possible objections or stalls that the client's going to bring up? Are they going to think of everyone? No, but have some prepared so that when you get them and you get punched in the mouth, as Mike Tyson would say, you have that you can stick to your plan. It's really, really important.
So just going to stopping you there for a moment. Pick any industry, any time in history. Pretty much, the basic objections, the basic food groups are going to be, I'm going to pick 5. It's like, it's the price. We already got somebody in place. We're too busy right now. And none of those have changed. And yet it's a surprise to salespeople when that comes up. It's like, what do I do? And it should be the easiest thing in the world to do.
Yeah, it's funny, Mark. My kids tell me I'm old, right? I'm 52 years old, and my teenage kids think I'm ancient. And I
Yep.
guess I did when my parents were that age too.
You thought 45 was old.
My kids are pretty sure that I rode dinosaurs to school, right? But and you're right, it hasn't changed since the beginning of time. And in 30 years of selling professional sales, I have never ever given a price to somebody and had them say to me, "Oh wow, Jeff, that is much lower than we thought it was going to be. Where do I sign?"
Yep, that has never happened in the history of humanity.
So yes, I think you're right. There's a definite, in every industry has their definite group of and objections. And what you want to do is you want to write those down and be a pessimist. Think of what's going to come up and what you're going to do when that happens. Because most salespeople here will make the mistake of trying to justify, defend, and explain why that objection is not valid. And that is
Right.
absolutely wrong. Because Umar, you're a professional salesperson. Are all objections authentic or are some fake?
Of course, some of them are fake.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's out of politeness. I don't want to say no, so I'm going to just give an excuse to save face because my mom told me if you don't have anything nice to say, lie.
Yeah. It's funny. We'll have to talk about this some other time, but I have a whole thing about problems we have in sales that we can blame on our parents.
Yep.
But when we get an objection, you've got to resist the urge to justify, defend, and explain. And we really got to instead use the questioning skills that we as professional salespeople should have to ask questions to understand the intent behind the objection.
Pause you right there. There's probably more marriages have broken up because whichever spouse did not understand the intent of the issue. Because it was a red herring, and had they gone a little bit deeper, they would have gone, definitely I need to divorce that guy. No. But yeah, intent is so important.
Yeah, no, totally. And so we need to understand why they're bringing that up and why are they bringing it up now, especially if they've had previous opportunities to bring it up and didn't. And we need to discover, is this an authentic objection or is this a smokescreen objection?
And so just backing up a little bit, this whole thing is predicated on you need to build a connection with your customer in a way that there is a lot of trust there. And if you've got enough trust, you can ask any question you want. And I understand in Sandler, you've got the contract up front, which is certainly incredibly useful, but none of that makes a difference unless you build that level of trust. And when you have that trust, people will go on the journey with you.
That's right. And trust is, matter of fact, I'll say that trust is the only thing that matters because I will tell you that we have a Sandler rule that says no trust equals no sale. People will buy from people they don't like, but they will never buy from somebody they don't trust.
Absolutely. And so what's kind of interesting is I moved here from Canada. And one of the things in Canada that was interesting is they tend to be a lot politer than the Americans. And if they don't want to buy, sometimes they'll not string you along, but they just don't want to hurt your feelings. And so the sales cycles can stretch a lot over there compared to the US. At least in the US, it's like yes, no, or get the hell out of here. But trust is critically important. Otherwise, people hide what they're feeling and what the real issues are.
Yeah, and I wish it was true that in the U.S. it was yes, no, or get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
All too often it's, oh, let us think it over, or we'll get back to you, or can you call me next week?
Please send me some brochures. I would
Send me
love that.
some literature, or can you give me a link to your website? Really? I don't what's amazing to me is that salespeople will accept those answers.
You know why?
Because they're afraid of no.
Yeah, because if you tell me the truth, don't tell me I'm ugly. Just give me some excuse. I'll buy it. I'll go to my manager. I think we're close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say about 50% certainty is coming in next month.
Yeah, right. And it's funny because, Umar, if you called me and asked me to pick you up at the airport next Friday at San Francisco Airport because you were coming into town, and you said, I'll be in about 3:00. And if you called me and I said to you, 3:00 on Friday, traffic's going to be tough. And Friday's a tough day for me. Yeah, Umar, I can probably be there. I mean, yeah. Okay, yeah, I can probably pick you up. How are you going to feel about your chance of being picked up at the airport?
Pretty much zero.
Yeah, you're going to have Uber ready to go, right?
Yeah.
and yet, so things we won't accept in our personal life, we'll gladly accept in our professional life. And salespeople will go, oh, yeah, you want me to call you next week? Okay, I can call you next week. And salespeople just leave it at that. They don't go, well, what day and time should I call you?
Yeah. And also a very Sandler kind of thing is, so you're going to be on the call, right?
Yeah, right.
Once you've got that, just to make sure, just double check. So it all comes down to very much the superhuman ability that we all have as human beings. I'm not sure if you know this. I've done deep research into this. Is rationalizing things.
Yes.
Like we can rationalize anything away. And if you look at the word, we don't use language accidentally. It's rational lies that we tell ourselves to feel good about ourselves and have the hope. Because, this month, this is probably the worst year ever for like health clubs with the pandemic. Right. But in a normal year, they would have brought in a ton of cash in January.
Yep.
Because some people, after going one visit, it's like just having the membership is close enough to me having a great body. I don't have to go there, right?
Right. I've got a buddy of mine that used to run marketing for 24 Hour Fitness. And
nice.
And he told me that if everybody that had a membership ever showed up, the club, there would be a waiting line outside to get in because they would have overextended the amount of people that they could put in the club in a day, right?
For sure.
And it's the only business model I've ever seen that is predicated on getting people to sign up for something that they won't use.
Absolutely.
Because if everybody used their membership, they could only sell the capacity of the club, they would go broke.
They couldn't afford to be open. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's an addictive sport called squash.
Uh-huh.
Every day, every weekday morning at 6:30, I'm on the court playing, and I'm one of the oddities in the club, I'm sure, because of more the addiction to the game than the addiction to being healthy. So let's go back to where were we in the process?
Yeah, so we've been through the first step of having a written PALO or upfront contract, right? Mm-hmm. We've been through the second step of writing down the questions we want to ask. We talked about the third step of being a pessimist, thinking about the objections. The fourth step is to be an optimist. Think about what could go right, and if things go right, I'm a baseball guy. And so I like baseball. So they should figure out, if things go right, what's my home run on this call? What is like perfect things go right? This is what I want to have happen next. If things go okay and I get a base hit, what does that look like?
Right.
And they should have written down, here's my home run, here's my base hit, so that they know what at the end of the call they know what they're asking for. And then
for sure.
And then the fifth step is to write down what you think a good closing PALO would be, right? As far as, hey, if we're meeting again, we've decided to meet again now based on our single or home run, and what's the purpose of that meeting going to be? Get it mutually agreed upon, right? What's the agenda going to be? What are we talking about? What are the logistics? And what's going to be the outcome or decision that we're going to make at the end of that meeting, right? And get that all mutually agreed upon before we walk out the door. And by the way, that next meeting should be calendared up before you walk out the door. Every
Absolutely.
single person has a cell phone with them with a calendar on it.
So I have actually been guilty of doing this where it's like, yeah, Jeff, we should meet. And then kicking myself for not putting on the calendar right there and then, because then you can't get a hold of them.
Right.
And then it's like you had an opportunity, they were ready, and the only person to blame is yourself.
And I saw something on LinkedIn, and of course, if it's on LinkedIn, it's got to be true.
Absolutely.
Right. And they said that when people calendar things up on their calendars, it's a 90% likelihood that it happens.
So even if we discount it down to 70% is way better than not doing it.
Right. So yeah, even if you discount down to 70%. So, but one of the huge mistakes salespeople make is not calendaring up when they have the client in front of them or on the phone or on Zoom, not calendaring up that next meeting. Because if it gets on the calendar, most likely is going to happen.
So nobody is going to have a meeting with you on that second meeting if there wasn't a level of interest.
Right.
They're going to make all kinds of excuses. So if they got a level of interest, you might as well capture that in a bottle right there and then rather than risk it. But I think some people want to just get out of that office with what they think is a win without screwing it up in some way. And dear salesperson, if other people need to be at that meeting, get the meeting with the person you're meeting with calendared. And then once you've got it calendared, say who else needs to be in this meeting.
That's right.
And add to it rather than say, before you calendar it, who else needs to be here? Then it's like, oh, let me think about it. And then you'll lose the opportunity.
Yeah.
Get it, lock it down, and then ask who else needs to be there.
Yeah. And salespeople will use that as an excuse. But really, it's again, they're terrified of the word no. Or they feel like it's being pushy to ask for the next meeting.
And so it all comes down to our beliefs on what we believe about selling. And the number of people I meet that are, let's say, bankers or engineers, and they go like this, literally, hands get pushed out in front of them like they're warding off an evil spirit. It's like, I'm not a salesperson.
Yeah, right.
What's part of your job? Oh, getting clients. It's like that you're a salesperson.
Which brings us to the sixth step of pre-call planning, which is mindset. Having a supportive mindset. And understanding that, listen, my wife works for a tech company in a project management role. And she definitely does not feel like she's a salesperson. But she has come to the realization that she still has to sell her ideas and her processes to the stakeholders in the different projects, and that she is a salesperson. I have a brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is an engineer, and he's really proud. He's got this shirt that says engineer, and it says a person who solves a problem you didn't know you had in a way that you don't understand. And he's really proud of that.
Yes.
And as he's progressed in his engineering career, he's found out that, guess what? He has to do a whole lot of sales. And so people don't like to think of it as sales, but listen, we all sell. Just remember back when we used to be able to go to the movie theater?
Yep.
I had to sell my wife on what movie to see a lot of times. And
absolutely. And Jeff, do you have any kids?
I do. I have a 13-year-old and an 18-year-old, which is terrible.
So I'm not sure how good they are right now at sales, but I bet you 100% when they were 3, they knew which parent to ask and how to ask to get what they wanted. And we lose that magical gift. All of a sudden it's like, oh, we can't sell. I don't want to be pushy. What will they think of me? And when we're 3, it's like, if I want this, I have to go to dad and say this magic phrase and he's going to say yes. And for the other thing, I have to go to mom, and we all sell.
Yeah, my daughter's 13. She parent shops all the time. And my daughter has figured out that if she's going clothes shopping, she wants dad.
Of course.
Because dad says yes to almost everything. Mom is very judicious in what, I would never spend $120 on a pair of sneakers, right? She says, Daddy, can I please have a pair of sneakers? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I go to the cash register, hand the person my credit card, and I go, wait, how much did I just spend? A few years ago when my daughter's 13, so when the Warriors started being really good, she was little.
Yes.
And so my daughter, it's not a wonder that she's a Warriors fan, right? She grew up when the Warriors were the best team in the NBA. And so a few years ago, we were at the mall, and she wanted a pair of the Curry shoes. And I said, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, we can go get those. And I paid my $125 for the Curry sneakers.
You got a flight.
Yeah, I did. They were on sale. It was a back to school sale. And my wife, when we got home, my wife saw him. She looked at me. She goes, "You never, ever, ever would have done that for Jack, my son." And I looked at her. I said, "Yeah, you know what? You're probably right." But her love was for sale, and I was buying. and she understands how to sell me, right?
Yes.
I'm dad almost all the time, but when she wants clothing, I'm daddy.
I love it.
Right? And she gets it. And so that mindset becomes very, very important. We have to have a belief in what we're doing and have a positive belief that we're not being pushy. If you really feel you're there to help somebody solve a problem that they have, then why would you ever feel pushy for helping them? If your friend needed help moving a couch up the stairs and you walked by, you wouldn't watch them struggling with the couch and say, "Well, I'll see you later," because you didn't want to be pushing and say, "Hey, can I help you?" So why do we do that in our real lives? And it's amazing to me that salespeople feel that way. And we need to really have a strong belief system that what we're doing has value for the client, has value to help them solve a problem, and really is value that we personally are adding value to the situation. Because I would tell you this, I think I told you before, salespeople can be like actors and artists. I'll also add this, and salespeople can be a lot like doctors. Mm-hmm. We need to be doctors and ask really good questions like the doctors do. But one of the things I'll tell you is that your doctor, when they finally prescribe a solution, they believe it's the right solution for you. And as a result, they don't ask you, "Would it be okay if I prescribe some erythromycin?" They tell you, "We're going to do some erythromycin," right? And because they have a very strong belief system in what they do. And as salespeople, we have to have a very strong belief system, because my belief is this: if you try to sell somebody something that they don't need, you are committing sales malpractice.
Yes.
At the same time, if you fail to sell somebody something they do need, you are also guilty of sales malpractice.
Those are words to live by. Jeff, thank you so much for creating this jam-packed 30-minute, high content, people can use it, execute, shows your mastery. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was a thrill to be here.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. And if you're looking for more tools, go to my website at nolimitselling.com. I've got a free mind training course there that's going to teach you some insights from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and that is the fastest way to get better results.